Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just wait another minute or two to give some other people to join in, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, Dan, I think we'll get started. Good afternoon, and welcome to the next installment of a series of free webinars sponsored by Pet Store Pro and the Global Pet Expo Academy, featuring speakers from past Global Pet Expo Academies. I'm Celeste Powers, President of the Pet Industry Distributors Association. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. Before introducing today's speaker, I want to remind you that you can watch all of our Global Pet Expo webinars, including this one, under the Seminars tab on our website at globalpetexpo.org. And of course, you can access all of our free training on Pet Store Pro 24/7 at petstorepro.com. I'm delighted to introduce today's speaker, Dan Jablons of Retail Smart Guys. Dan worked in retail while attending the Ohio State University and has worked with retailers of all sizes, including well-known brands Walmart, Target, American Apparel, Donna Karan, Jimmy Choo, Diesel, Oakley, and many others, from single store mom and pops up to the majors. His experience in the industry includes working as a vendor, a point of sale provider, and an internet marketing firm. In addition to his vast retail background, Dan also has a background in improvisational theater. He recently appeared on Curb Your Enthusiasm and is often seen in national commercials. By combining his extensive knowledge of retail with his comedy skills, Dan has become one of the industry's most popular speakers. He has spoken at many trade show events, including this year's Global Pet Expo Academy. This afternoon, Dan will teach you how to put your best staff forward, how to hire, train, and fire for your store. Take it away, Dan.
Thank you, Celeste. Hi, everybody. Appreciate all of you dialing in from all different parts of the world to join us today. And I'm excited to present you this webinar. I will tell you this, my company is called Retail Smart Guys, and we named it obviously so that people would believe the things we tell them. But predominantly, what we are is really sticky in that we're in a different retail store every day of our lives. And so I get to see lots and lots of what different retailers do and collect up a lot of best practices and collect up a lot of worst practices. You know, we should tell people to do this and make sure they don't do that, you know, that kind of thing. So today's webinar is really more about what I've seen some of our more successful retailers do to keep a really great staff. And I will tell you that although the lion's share of what we do in Retail Smart Guys has to do with managing your inventory and your sales and what does your inventory look like, which, you know, obviously as a retail store, you know, it's your biggest expense and deserves the most of your attention. Staff issues and staff problems and staffing in general becomes the second most popular topic of my day. So, and in my youth, I used to think, oh, it'd be easy, just hire people and they'll do what they tell you. It doesn't always go down that way, does it? So I'm going to go through, you know, what I've seen to be some of the best practices out there. Again, this is not any of my divine wisdom. It's more my divine collection of what I've seen work out there. You may have some questions that come up during the webinar today. You can actually fill them in the little box that's there, a place for you to collect up questions, and Celeste is going to collect those, and then we'll answer those at the end. Okay, I just don't want to stop in the middle to do that, but we'll answer every question you have, and even if we run out of time today, if you submit your question, I will write to you personally. Also, you heard that the webinar is going to be available on the training tab, so you can watch it again, or you can invite other members of your team to watch it. And if you'd like, we can also email this presentation to you. Okay? All right, well, let's just jump right in here. And let's talk from the beginning, hiring, okay? So the thing that I find that happens that is the most important in the hiring process is that, sometimes people think, well, they need to have a background in the pet industry, or they need to understand something about pets, or have worked in pets, or own pets, or that kind of stuff. I think owning pets is probably a really good idea. But the main important things is that they have to be outgoing and willing. Outgoing and willing. So the rest of it's trainable, but as long as they're outgoing and willing and are happy to do things and are happy to have conversations with people, that's everything. Each of you guys are independent retailers, and so you have customers coming every day. And what's the difference between buying from you and buying from a major chain, or buying off of the web, is really your staff and your people. And so to the degree that your staff and your people are part of the fun of being in that store, you can actually defeat both of those things. I've seen it happen in the pet industry, but the people that are on the floor have to be outgoing and willing. Have to be outgoing and willing. You can teach them everything else about the industry, about the products, all that other stuff is really important. That can be happen. So look everywhere that you see good service. I use this example all the time. I went to a restaurant when I was visiting one of my clients, and I sat down at the table to have dinner, and the waitress came over, and I'm used to it. She's gonna say, "Hi, my name is whatever, and here are the specials," and blah blah blah. There's always some blackened thing, right? I don't know why there's always a blackened thing. I'm not sure if at some point we forgot how to cook and everything has to be blackened and burnt. But anyway, um, uh, so she came over to the table and she said, "Hi, my name is Amy, and I'm looking forward to serving you today. And uh, what's your name?" And when she asked me my name, I was so stunned and amazed that she even asked me. I almost didn't know how to answer it. And then everything she brought out to me after that, every course, here's your salad, Dan. Here's your main course, Dan. Here's your drink, Dan. And I was like, wow, this person's really on it. So, any place you find people that provide good service, I think you can talk to them about your store. Okay, you're not going to say, I'm going to try to steal you away, but you can have a business card there that say, hey, I'm looking for outgoing, willing people just like you. If you know people, let me know. Okay, when you find people that you like, we're a big fan of the sample shift. Let me tell you how that works. You meet someone, you like them, you think they might be good for the store. Say to them, listen, on Saturday, between 1 and 3, I want you to come to the store. I want you to be on the floor, and all I want you to do is try to engage in conversations with people that come in. I don't want them to sell. I don't want them to try to, help anybody. I just want them to start conversations and then pass them to your existing staff. Okay? If they're able to do that, you have a chance. You have a potential winner. But if they walk around the store like Frankenstein and they don't even talk to anybody and they seem lost and confused and they can't engage in conversations, they're probably not right for you. Yes, you pay them for the sample shift. Yeah, you pay them for those 2 hours. But I would invest those 2 hours and make sure I've got a good person before you go through all the paperwork to hire somebody, all the time to train them, all of the teaching them the point of sale system, etc. I've done this presentation for people in the cell phone industry, and you'd be amazed how much training those guys go through before they hit the floor. But it means that they put 8 to 10 weeks worth of training into someone before they know if they can sell. Man, that's expensive. So I want to find out early on if they can sell. So that's why we do the sample shift before we ever hire them. Okay? Now, more importantly, did you write a job description? Most of the conflicts that I find happen on the sales floor are things where you ask them to do stuff that they don't think they're supposed to do, right? And sometimes that includes cleaning. I can't tell you how many people, how many store owners and store managers turn to me and say, am I the only person who knows how to put a new roll of toilet paper in the bathroom? Is it just down to me? Is that what it is? Not that you're going to putting a roll of toilet paper in a job description, but you can include things like cleaning, unpacking boxes, calling customers, making deliveries, helping to receive new goods. I mean, all that stuff should be in a job description, so there is no conflict later on, okay? And that they understand what they're getting into when you hire them, okay? This last point is, it says we are always hiring. I learned this from a coffee place that's near me. They have a permanent sign up that says we are always hiring, okay? Why do I like that? Because they continue to collect up resumes, good, bad, or indifferent, throughout the entire time that they're there, okay? And so that when the time comes to replace somebody, they have a good assortment of resumes that they can start to call on right away. Hey, are you still available? Hey, are you still looking for work? Why don't you come on and talk to us? It also sends a very positive message to the customers. We're always growing. We're always adding new people. We're always looking for the best and the brightest. Okay? I think it's a really good, really important basic thing to do, is just to make sure you have that always hiring thing up there. It also sends a message to everybody. And the message is, hey, you know what? We're always looking for the best people. And I'm not here to be vicious and throw people out, that kind of stuff. But, the fact that you can constantly collect people and get good names is an important part of keeping your store staffed well. There are many stores that tolerate bad employees because they go, well, they occupy the morning shift in my schedule, and I don't have anybody else right now, so I have to deal with that, even though I don't want to, okay? Terrible mistake. Remember that your staff are ambassadors to your stores, and so they have to be outgoing and willing, and they have to paint a great face on your store. And so the fact that you're always looking, always hiring, always looking for great new people is a great message to send out to your community. Okay? Once you got them, how do you train them? Okay, well, the one thing you have to do is teach them selling techniques. I'm a big fan of the Friedman Group. If you haven't heard of those guys, Harry Friedman developed some great selling techniques, and we utilize them and we teach them to a degree. We have some that we've developed ourselves also, but a lot of it's based on what Harry put together. He really is he's a friend of mine, and actually a sort of a really bright guy in this whole thing. But you can't just assume that someone who's outgoing and willing can go on the floor and understand how to engage with people. They don't know what questions to ask, maybe. They don't know how to position themselves. They don't know how to greet people in the store. One of the most important things is asking open-ended questions, right? Questions that people can't just answer yes or no to. Okay? So teaching them how to sell. How do you want the customer approached? What are the questions to ask? How do you lead them to the sale? How do you add on? What do you do after the sale is done and you've rung them up? These are all important things that are vital. So you must teach them some selling techniques. And if you don't have a codified selling technique, then you should get ones. And we're certainly happy to help with that one. After this one, if you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to email you some thoughts about that. Okay? They need product knowledge, even if they've owned dogs their whole life, okay? And they seem to know everything about dogs and everything about dog health and everything about dog nutrition and everything about dog exercise and dog toys and all that kind of stuff. The first person they'll face is a cat person. And so, they need to understand all of that stuff, right? And as buyers, that there's a great deal of information that your vendors are providing these days, certainly about nutrition, but maybe about health, maybe about a bunch of other things, about how they put their food together, why that food is important. Dog food is certainly taken a different turn, right? There's frozen food, cat food too, there's frozen, and there's all different types of ways you can do that kind of stuff. And as a pet owner, they may not understand, why do we have frozen food? What good is it? What value is it? And your people need to have the most product knowledge. I can tell you this, right now we're looking for a dog. We don't have one right now, but in a couple of years ago, I had as many as 3 at one time, and one of them was a super picky eater. And it used to make me crazy because I couldn't find the food that would be right for her. Any pet store that could have provided me the solution to that problem would have owned me for forever. Owned me for forever, right? You guys all know this part, that people feel sometimes closer to their pets than they do their own family. And so if you can solve pet problems for them, you can own them for forever. Okay? So getting them some really good product knowledge is key, okay? And certainly they have to be able to operate your point of sale system well. I have seen more employees mangle point of sale systems, and if they can't do a basic cash sale in your point of sale system, they're going to create other problems in your store. Okay, I would actually train them, by the way, in this sequence that I'm listing here right now. They need to know how to sell first. They need to know product knowledge. They need to understand your point of sale system. Okay, and they need to understand something about clienteling. How do I make sure that I've established a good relationship with that customer so that they trust me, so that when they have another question or another issue or need something else, they come back to talk to me because I've clienteled well and I've understood exactly what they need, and then I become a trusted resource for them. I will tell you this also, by the way. Um, many uh, people ask me about millennials, and we talk about millennials as if they beamed here from some other planet, right? The millennials, it's like some other alien race that arrived. The truth is, we made them. I'm as guilty of that as anybody. I have a son. He's 26 years old. He is a perfect millennial. I text him more than I talk to him. You know, that's what it is, right? Um, but here's a sort of a side tip that's really not even so much about this, but I wanted to throw it into here as well. Um, Millennials, while people talk about they're a difficult group, they don't want to be talked to, and they're hard to keep on staff, and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. Here's what I'll tell you about millennials. Millennials are one of the first generations ever to really truly, you know, keep the cause in the forefront of their mind. Um, every generation. I'm a baby boomer, and my generation said stuff like "save the ocean, save the whales, save the planet," that kind of stuff, and we believed in all that up until the point where we got mortgages and had expenses and had families, and then we willfully took the job at Dow Chemical, right? That's just sort of how that goes. This is the first generation that said, I'm not taking that job if they don't have if I don't believe in what they're doing and they don't have a social conscience, right? If you actually show that you have some level of social conscience, number one, you'll be able to retain millennials more than other people will, because you're not just about the buying and selling of merchandise, you also have some greater purpose in mind. And here's a survey from the NRF that I think will be interesting to you. 67% of millennials surveyed by the NRF, which is, and they surveyed a couple thousand of them, okay, said that they would buy from a store that they believed in before they would buy from a store that was closer to them or had a better price. 67% said they'll buy from a store they're more loyal to than a store that has a better price or has a better location. If you're wondering where the future of your store is, that's it. And by the way, the millennials within the next 4 years will be 75% of the workforce. So they're not just some cute little niche that we can semi-ignore anymore. They're there, right? But and another thing that millennials talk about in terms of stores and working there, that kind of stuff, making it a learning experience for them was hugely important. So teaching them really good sales techniques is a skill they can carry with them for forever, right? And it's an important thing to them. So if they feel like they're learning, if they feel like they're developing, if they feel like they're being trained, they will stick around longer. Okay, so think about this as you add your people. Am I teaching them how to sell? Are they getting good product knowledge? Do they understand the system? And do they understand how to create a relationship that will bring the customer coming back? Okay, so how do I measure them and how do I motivate them, right? They have to be measured based on statistics, not any other way, and I've put the top ones here. Units per transaction, dollars per transaction, like average dollar sale, and new names in the point of sale. So I'm going to digress and talk about this for a minute. They have to be measured statistically, because in the absence of having statistics for them to really listen to, okay, they think their job is dependent upon whether or not you like them. In the absence of statistics, they think whether or not you like them is how they keep their job. So you walk in one day and you've had, let's just say, not a particularly great morning. You had a flat tire, you had a fight with your significant other, something else went wrong, you had a bad phone call, that kind of stuff, and they say hi, and you go, yeah, how's it going? And that's when it starts. Oh man, did you see that? Oh, I think the store's closing. Oh, we're all in big trouble. Oh, it's really bad. I should get my resume together. That kind of stuff. That's how it starts. That said, if they know their units per transaction and they know their dollars per sale and they know how many new names they've added into the point of sale, because that's important for your future marketing, and they know that they're doing well, they're meeting your expectations on that kind of stuff, they know their job is secure. And by the way, if they know that they're not getting those things, they know that they're not doing well, and a lot of times they fire themselves, which is actually nicer. Okay? I get them to figure these stats out. There are reports in every point of sale system that will enable you to figure this thing out. If you don't know how to figure it out, reach out to me after this webinar is done. Tell me what your point of sale system is. I'll tell you how to get to this, okay? And even if you had to do it manually, frankly, keeping up with units per transaction is probably one of the more important statistics that there are. Because here's the thing, you do all that you do from a marketing standpoint, all the social media, all the emails, any advertising you do, any signage you put around town, any clienteling that your staff does, you do all this stuff to get people across the threshold. Okay, and the worst thing that can happen is they come to buy a bag of dog food and we sell them a bag of dog food. When you consider all the other stuff that's in your store and all the other things that they can buy, right? And you guys know that food is the toughest margin you have, so you want them to buy the other stuff, okay? Units per transaction is a measure of whether or not they're establishing relationships, whether or not they're showing people around the store, whether or not they're actually getting some penetration to happen there. Okay, same with average dollar sale or dollars per transaction, right? We want to know, yeah, okay, I got them to buy more stuff, but it's because I got them to buy like, 3 greenies at the register. That's not the answer. The answer is also I want them to buy other things. They need to buy, they need to sell uh, um, grooming supplies. They need to sell medicinal things. They need to sell other nutritional things, right? So you want to make sure they know their units per transaction, their average dollar sale, how many names to the point of sale they're getting, and you want them to figure out their own stats, okay? So they know where they are, and you want to post them in the back room, obviously not in front of customers, but post what everybody's units per transaction, average dollar sale is, and why. And the reason is because, first off, the guys that are good, you want to recognize them. You want to reward them for doing well, right? The guys that aren't good need to confront that. And it's used not so you have a quick way to fire them. That's not my intent. My intent is if we're not getting good units per transaction out of an employee, that employee needs some more training. We need to watch them sell. Are they approaching people well? Are they asking open-ended questions? Are they getting people to actually experience the stuff? They put the stuff in their hands. Are they talking about what's going on there? I mean, pet lovers are a talkative group typically if you approach them the right way. So are they doing all those things? And if they're not, let's train them. Let's teach them how to sell. Let's teach them let's get them some more product knowledge. Let's get that going. But these stats are going to be the way in. And the important thing about the stats also is, when you start to have a conversation with your employees about selling, and you try to correct them on it, right, or improve them on it, you have to have the stats to go to. And we all have to agree what those stats are and how they're calculated. Okay? Now, when you start to do that, if you start to collect up your stats, you want to compare them to the store average, not to each other. Because if you want war, that's how you get it. Okay? If I turn to Bob and I say, Bob, right now your units per transaction are 2.1, but Steve is 2.7. Why can't you be more like Steve? Bob will hate Steve. Or make excuses for why Steve is better than him. Okay, but I can turn to Bob and say, hey, Bob, the store average is 2.5, you're at 2.1. I got to get you to that store average. How do we do that? Okay, that becomes a training question. Now, Bob may say, well, I'm going to try harder, and you get to say, oh, I didn't realize you were phoning it in the whole time. But that aside, maybe Bob needs to understand how to add on. Go out on the floor with him, pick up a product and say, if I was looking at this, what would you add on? What's a complementary product to this? What else might you say? Okay. If Bob's units per transaction are okay, but his average dollar sale is not so great, have him go to the floor and find 5 things and buy each of the different product types that you sell, right? Dog products, cat products, bird products, fish products, whatever, reptile products, whatever you're selling, okay? Have him find at least 5 things that are over the store average in terms of sales. Average sale, right? So if the average sale in your store is $15 per transaction, then have them find 5 items that are above $15, and that'll help him figure out what he can lead with, so he knows how to increase that average transaction value. Okay. The bad ones fire themselves. If your store average is 2.3 units per transaction, and I turn to an employee and I say, hey, you know what? You're at 1.8. Stores at 2.3 needs to get to 1.8. They can only tolerate that conversation so many times before they realize they're in the wrong place. And it's far better, far, far better to have them fire themselves, as you know, than than to have you fire them, right? Far better to go away that way. You don't get into the unemployment thing. But the way you get them to do that is you confront them with their stats. Units per transaction, dollars per transaction, new names to point of sale. To the degree that you do that well, is to the degree that they will actually figure out, do I belong here, do I not belong here? And you can use those stats, again, to train them, to refine their approach, and to improve your customers' experience inside your store. Okay? How do we incentivize them? Okay? I believe in commission plans. I know people worry about commission plans. I've heard it all. We're a team. We're a family. I don't want it to turn into a very competitive, awful situation. It doesn't have to. But I will tell you this, that it has to do with how you do the culture of the store. Okay? And you by not offering commission plans, what I can tell you is that you give up your chance at the better salespeople that are in your market. Okay, salespeople like to be rewarded for what they do well. And so commissions are important to be individual, not group. And the reason is that your bad sellers hide behind your good sellers, right? If I'm a lousy seller and Celeste is a great seller, okay, and my units per transaction are 1.6 and hers are 2.5, I'm like, great, because she'll drive us to the bonus and I get to be rewarded without me having to work that hard. And eventually, by the way, Celeste begins to resent that. And if she can find something where her selling abilities are better rewarded, you will lose her to that other store. So I believe they need to be individual. Okay? I think you can do a store bonus. I'm not opposed to that. I like that from a team perspective. But the whole thing that keeps the commission thing palatable is A, it has to make sense financially. So they have to see that they can make more money. You have to see that it's not going to kill you, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Okay? Um, and the culture of the store has to be such that you're not creating mercenaries, that you're not creating floor gladiators that will kill each other to get to the customer, right? You have to be able to say, look, we do commission plans because we want to reward people, but we're still a team, we're still a family, and it's going to be a non-negotiable if I see that you guys are doing stuff to be super competitive and hurt each other on the floor. Okay? I believe you pay commissions after the goals are met. You pay them a greater commission. I think one of the big mistakes that happens is that people pay like a 1% or 2% from the first dollar. Okay? The problem with that is it becomes entitlement. Okay? When someone gets paid from the first dollar and they get commission all the way through, it becomes like, well, I always got that. So it's not even a reward. Okay? But if they know they have to hit a certain dollar amount and then they get a higher commission rate based on that, then they suddenly become focused on how do I get those sales where they need to be. If it's just off the first dollar, the problem with that becomes like, well, I get it or I don't get it, and I'm getting it no matter what, and that kind of thing. So I think, you have to give them a goal, and they have to be focused on hitting that goal first, and then pay them commissions afterwards. Okay? And now, here's another thing you want to look at. There's a thing called selling cost. Okay? And selling cost basically is what you pay them divided by what they've sold. Okay? And I have some examples going here a little bit, but it's what you paid them. Doesn't include benefits, doesn't include the tax part of it, that kind of stuff. Just literally what you've paid them divided by what they've sold, and you want that to be 9 to 10%. It's higher in certain places. If you're in San Francisco, if you're in New York, it's higher there. It's higher in some of the more urban areas, but a good national average is between 9 and 10%. Whatever it is, you want to know what that is and try to improve upon that. Okay, so let me just do the selling cost math for you. Okay, if your total expenses as a store are 42% and your fixed expenses are 23%, then your variable expenses are 19, right? Selling payroll for this particular store that I'm talking about is 12% of sales. That's a little high, okay? But by measuring the sales and lowering the selling cost to 10%, your expenses go down from 42 to 40%, and you actually get another 3% in pure cash profit. Look at this example right here, okay? This is an actual store selling $750,000. Okay, their fixed expenses were $172,000. Their variable expenses were $142,000. So their profit before cost of goods was $435,000. And we said, okay, well, what if I can decrease, okay, their selling expense by just 2%? Okay, well, we didn't change their revenue, and obviously their fixed expenses didn't change because they're fixed expenses. Okay. But their variable expenses went from 142 to 127, so their profit before cost of goods went from 435 to 450. So they picked up $15,000 in cash, um, just by reducing their payroll expense from 12% to 10%. Okay. Now, what if you add a 5% increase in sales to that? What if their sales went from 750 to 616? Well, now it's 788. Again, their fixed expenses don't change. Okay, the variable expenses go up a little bit from this expense. Why? Because their sales went up. Okay, but now their profit before cost of goods is 481, so they actually pick up $46,000 by increasing their sales by 5% and by reducing their selling costs by 2%. How do you do that, right? Well, okay, so, increasing your sales has to do with some marketing, has to do with landing the right goods at the right time and making sure your inventory turns are really good. That's how you get the sales increase. But the other one I find often comes down to just going back and looking at your scheduling and tightening that a little bit and improving your commission plan a little bit. Okay, that's how mathematically this happened, because this is an actual example from an actual store. It is not just a made-up number in a conference room. Okay, I'm now let's just talk about one potential commission plan. Okay, this is just one example of a plan. We call it the 9% plan. Again, you can get a copy of this webinar so you can try it in your own stores and take a look at this. So here's how this works, okay? Assume you pay somebody 10 bucks an hour. I did this a while ago, so I know minimum wage is going up. I know, but just ride the numbers with me for a moment. Assume you're paying them $10 an hour, okay? So their hourly rate, okay, what I want them to sell per hour is the 9% that we're calling the 9% plan divided by what we're paying them. So if I'm paying them $10, I divide that by 9%, $111 per hour is what I want them to sell. Okay? Their hourly rate divided by 9% gives me what their hourly sales goal is. Okay? If I take that and I multiply the number of hours that they work, let's say they work 30 hours in a week, it's that same $111 that's here times 30. That's how much sales they have to produce in a week. Okay? Just to review it again, because I know it's math. Okay? I'm paying them $10 an hour. I take that 10, I divide it by 9%, it comes up to $111 per hour. That's their sales goal. I take their hourly sales goal, multiply it by the number of hours they're going to work, and that's their weekly goal. Okay? Now, they get 9% commission on everything they sell above their weekly goal. Okay? So, if they sell $4,000 in a week, okay, they get 9% of the difference between 4,000 and 3,330. Okay. Now, why does this work? First off, they're focused on their goal. They're focused on getting to the sales goal that you need them to get to. It also works because no matter how much they sell, your selling cost never goes above 9%. Never, ever, ever. Okay. And this really works well to the degree that you do the math with them, they understand the math. And let me just tell you, when you implement this, you have to do the math with them. You have to show them how this is going to work and show them how this is going to make them more money than what they're making now. And you have to tie this to their personal goals. I did this one time with a guy who was working in a pet store, and I went through all the math with him, and I said, okay, if you did this, okay, you could earn another couple $100 a month. Give yourself a raise. If you got that money, what would you do? And he said, oh, I'd probably pay down some debt. And we laughed and laughed and laughed because we knew he'd never do that. I said, no, really, what would you do with the thing? He said, well, I'm a guitar player. I play in a band, and I have this guitar I would love to get. Now, he didn't expect me to know anything about guitars, but I did know something. So we talked about what he wanted to get, and it was kind of a cool electric guitar. And you can't just buy the guitar without the pedals that you need, and maybe you need another amp and that kind of stuff. And by the time we were done, it was about $2,000 worth of stuff. And based on the plan that he was working on and the way he was selling, if he actually hit his plan for 4 months in a row, he could afford that guitar. The store owner was there with me, and she said to him, tell you what, if you hit the goal, okay, I will buy you strings for a year. The guy's head's now ready to pop off his body because he never would have thought in a million years that by working at this store, he could afford that guitar. And so every month, we kind of did a little cheerleading. How close are you? Did you get it this month? Are we close to the guitar? Did you put something down on it? That kind of stuff. So now it's tied to his personal goals. Now it's a different thing than just showing up and walking through the day. Now his day is tied to, I want this guitar, I'm driven by this whole thing. And so suddenly he's really interested in the product knowledge. And suddenly he's really interested in clienteling. And suddenly he really wants to sell, and he really wants to be there. It's a way different way of looking at things. Now, this 9% plan may or may not work for some of you, okay? Again, you got to look at what your current selling cost is, and if it doesn't calculate well, then you can do it based on 10% or 11% or even a lower percentage. You have to play with that a little bit. And again, I'm more than happy, just because you guys came to this webinar, all of you, I'm happy if some of you have questions about it or are not sure how to implement it in your store. I'm happy to talk to you individually about that and help you get through the math on that. Okay? Okay. Well, let's assume we've done all that. It's still not working. Unfortunately, bad situations rarely get better. If they show up late for work the first day, they're probably going to show up late every day. And so, bad situations don't get better, and if they're getting bad, you've got to make that decision, okay? Faster, in this case, is always better than slower, okay? The sooner you get out of these bad situations and get into a better one, the better, okay? Your good employees are watching, okay? So your good employees watch how you treat the bad ones. I had to learn this lesson the hard way with employees of my own, right? Where I had a guy and I tolerated him. I felt bad. He was a family man. He had 3 kids. He was trying to make it go. He was trying to make all this stuff happen. So, I tolerated some of the lousy things that he was doing. And my good employees were sort of like, well, okay, I guess that's the rule then. So it doesn't matter. If that guy can get away with being late, that guy can get away with, not completing this or not completing that. I guess I don't have to either, right? It actually began to pollute my good employees, okay? And the worst part about that whole thing was after I finally did, let him go, after I finally did get to the point where it was like, oh, okay, fine. You know what? Unfortunately, I have to let you go. It's not working anymore. And I, like probably many of you, the night before I'm walking the floors. How am I going to do this? How am I going to tell the guy? I feel so awful, blah, blah, but I can't ignore it anymore, right? After the guy's finally gone, I've gone through that. All my other employees each had stories to tell me of horrible things he did that I didn't know about, but no one wants to be the rat, right? Nobody wanted to tell me that these things were happening, but there was a whole slew of other things that were even outside of my view that he was doing that was terrible, okay? So bad employees are bad employees. Your good employees are watching how you do it. It's not going to get better with age. The faster you get out of them, the better, okay? By the way, you're not helping them by keeping them around as much as you think you are. I one time was working with a store. There was a buyer there. He was doing a terrible job. Just wasn't keeping up with the numbers, wasn't keeping up with the inventory. We ran out of things all the time. There were terrible overbuys all over the place, that kind of stuff. And so finally, with the owner, I just said, look, this guy's got to go, right? I ran into him later on at a trade show, and I thought, he's going to assassinate me because I was part of the reason why he got fired. He came up to me and he hugged me. And he said to me, I was in this job and every day was another day, and I wasn't thinking about my future and thinking about what I was doing, and I was miserable and that kind of stuff. And then you fired me, and I had to I had to think about my life. And now I'm on the other side. I'm a vendor and I'm selling, and I've never been happier. I go, wow. So you know what? Keeping a guy in a bad situation where they're not succeeding, where they're not doing well, where they're causing problems in your stores, where the stats are not good, where they don't have good units per transaction, they don't have a good average dollar sale, you're not helping them any. They need to have a realization. They need to come through and see what their life is like and what should they be doing. Okay? All right. So I kind of went through the process, right? I went through how do you hire them, look for them any place you've got good service, look for the outgoing and willing, give them a sample shift, then train them, teach them selling techniques, teach them about your point of sale, teach them about the products, look at their stats, monitor their performance, watch what they're doing, coach them, train them, teach them more. Millennials are going to eat that up, okay? Incentivize them properly. Come up with a really good commission plan that works well for your stores, okay? And works well for you financially also, okay? And if it's not working out, faster is better than slower. Get them out of the way. Get them out of the store so they're also not giving customers bad experiences, right? And then find somebody else and get some good people. Now, listen, I also know it's a very tough time to hire people, right? Unemployment's at an all-time low, and it's not easy to keep them, and minimum wage is going up. I get it. And so it's becoming a more and more important skill and a more and more important thing that you have to do with your employees. But it's worth it. It's the difference between making it and not making it, honestly. And I think that given how much of, especially in the pet industry, how much of the marketplace is online and is available in bigger retailers, your staff is your secret to success. Okay, so let me just throw in this one last thing, and then we'll open it up to questions. Okay, one of the things I also said I would do as part of this webinar, and as our thank you for us, as for you guys that's showing up, is we'll do a free consultation for you, a free inventory analysis. And what that means is we're going to look at your business, because we plan for lots and lots of pet stores all around the world. Actually, we plan for people in 16 countries. So we really have a good understanding of what's working and what's not working. So we'll analyze your business for you for free. We'll tell you what departments you're underperforming in, where could you get more cash out of the business, and if you want us to look at your expenses, we'll look at that too and help you figure out what an appropriate expense structure is. Okay, all that's for free. You just have to sign up, and I think let me put my contact information here. It's a little hard to see, but my email there is dan@retailsmartguys.com, or that's my cell phone right there, 818-720-2585. I'll leave that up during the question and answer part of stuff, so we can do more of that. So with that, Celeste, let's see if people have questions, and let's answer as much as we can in the time we have left.
All right, that's great, Dan. Thanks. I don't know if anyone sent you questions directly. It looks like they can send them to you. If not, I've got a couple we could. If not,
no, I don't think it's yeah. So I don't think that's working. But maybe we can. You've got a couple that you have, I think, and then that I saw come across, and then maybe we take everybody off mute, and then they can ask me questions directly if they'd like to.
Okay, great. Yeah. So one question I had was, do you find that commission plans create havoc in the stores?
They can if you don't manage it well. Okay. Someone who's interested in commission sales can get aggressive, right? But it also has to do with the culture that you establish in your store. And if you really do set the tone of it being like we're all working together, and if you don't tolerate that kind of behavior, then it can work. Okay, it's a method by which you reward people that are doing well, and everybody has to understand that, right? By the same token, you do things like on slower days, everybody gets their turn, right? So if you've got 3 people on the floor, staff member A gets to work with the first customer, staff B gets the second, staff C works the third, and they work in rotation that way. So it's not everybody racing to try to attack the customer, right? But I think it has a lot to do with how you set the culture to your store.
Okay, great. Okay. I just want to make sure everyone realizes in the chat section, in the little sidebar, is where they can post comments up there. So, and as Dan said, we'll see if not, we can unmute. Again, you had a lot of great advice on, when unfortunately you do have to fire someone. And I guess my question would also be, how many strikes do you give them before you, do like what you said with the guy that you changed his life for the good?
Yeah. I think, I'm a big fan of the 3-strike rule, but I'm also a big fan of at the outset of their employment, giving them a couple of non-negotiables. Okay, here's an example. One of my stores, one of her non-negotiables is if your shift starts at 10, you got to arrive a couple minutes before to put down your stuff, to go to the bathroom if you need to go to the bathroom, to sort of, get your head together, to put your cell phone in the drawer, to whatever all the things are going to be that you're going to be, so that, at 10 a.m. you're ready to go. Now, that's a non-negotiable for her. And so if you miss that a couple of times, I think she gives them 2 strikes on that one. If you don't get there a little bit before your shift starts, that's the end. So there's certain things that are going to bug you that are non-negotiables, and you want to make sure you've established that everybody knows what they are, they've gotten them in writing. And on those, you can't give very many strikes, right? So, again, I think, they got to start off well, and if you start to see things like lateness or sloppiness or bad attitudes, or they show up and they're in the worst mood ever and they mope around the floor, I wouldn't give those a lot of strikes. I would have a conversation. If it doesn't immediately get better, you've got the wrong person.
Okay, that's great, Stan. And I think this is something we all want to know. Where's the best place to find new employees?
It's amazing. I find that, the best place is any place you see someone servicing someone, right? So, a lot of times I find people that are working in different service industries. One time I went into an ice cream store, and there was just the brightest, most bubbly, wonderful person, like just working behind the counter. And I did one of those, gave the card, said, "Hey, we're looking for people just like you." She contacted me a couple of weeks later. And she said, "I feel like I'm sort of at a dead end at the ice cream thing, and I'd like to figure out something else." She right now is uh, actually a divisional manager for one of the stores I have that has 7 stores. So I think it's outgoing and willing. I think it's any place you see them. Even if, you know what, I've had the experience where someone found someone at a post office, which is not something that they're they're not well reputed for that, right? But she found this person at the post office. They were working there, and it was like, gee, uh, um, I really wish I could do something else, and she went to work in retail and is doing great now. So I think it's anywhere you see people that are bright and bubbly and outgoing and willing. And again, it's not like, hey, do you want to come and work in my store? It's like, here's my card. I'm looking for people just like you. And you'd be amazed how effectively that works. And, look, it's just a nature of the beast. People recruit whatever they find good people. I'm hearing mixed things about, and you guys can tell me, but I'm not hearing great things about Indeed anymore. Craigslist is not a great place to recruit. You get people that are completely not suited for your store, that kind of thing. So, I think you got to look any place you find happy, bubbly, outgoing, willing, cheerful people, and see if you can get them to come work for you.
That's great advice. And I agree. I think some of this online applying for jobs with Indeed and other places has just become this big black empty hole. People
Yeah,
send their resume or fill out a job application, and then they never hear anything because everybody applies for every kind of job, no matter what level it is.
it's
So
for sure.
yeah,
I usually By the way, just
okay.
on that one, by the way, one of the things I suggest always is like, you put your job description. I used to say this a lot for people who are recruiting on Craigslist. I would say, um, you know, uh, when you list your job description there, at the bottom say, to be considered, make sure you put "I love puppies" in the subject line. Okay, something they have to change because they would just hit reply and paste in their standard response, right? I've been driving a truck for all my life and I decided I want to change and do something different. You know what I mean? So if they actually that shows that they've read the ad, they understood it, and they can actually follow some instructions. You at least have a chance then, so
Very true.
there you go.
I believe we have unmuted the participants to be able, for anybody that's out there, if you got a question for Dan, please just unmute yourself on the little microphone button and feel free to ask.
Yay! So I don't know how it's going to be the order, how we can ask the question.
You can go ahead now. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm Daniele and I'm from Falls Church, Virginia. And I
Okay.
wrote a question about a very challenging situation that we have here in my area. It's about groomers. We have a lack of groomers here. And for that reason, since it's 35% of my revenue should be coming from that, that is really hurting my business. Do you have any other experience in my area with other people that really have the same problem I do? And how would you tell me this is a good way you could find it? Because I've tried everything.
Okay. I think a couple of things about that. I can't say I can speak specifically to your area, but I have had other pet stores talk to me about problems hanging on to groomers and what they have to do on that. I find most often you have to survey people within your area, survey your groomers, and find out what are they getting, what do they want, how do they want to work, how does that happen? Okay, one of my stores actually offered to, as part of someone's compensation who had some background in it, was to actually pay them to go through some kind of grooming certification as long as they agreed to either stay on for that amount of time, or if they didn't, they paid the store back for the grooming certification, right? Because you just may need to get some more groomers or more people that are willing to do that work, But I think it has a lot to do with making sure you're competitive in terms of what you're offering them, what kind of schedule they want to work, what kind of surroundings they want to work, how do they want it to go, that kind of thing. I have had it in other industries that are similar. I have a bunch of wellness stores, and they have troubles keeping up with massage therapists for kind of the same reason. And so ended up having to find out what is it they wanted, how do they want to work, what do they want their day to be like, what do they want their compensation to be like, and make sure we were competitive to make that happen. So I would make sure you're fully competitive with those guys, make sure you understand what they want, make sure that what you're offering them is something that's of interest to them and would make them want to be at your store.
Yeah, the problem here that I found is that the certification, it costs a lot of money, and the only school here in Virginia is around $15,000.
Wow.
And a lot of people, I even tried to go myself. I said, I'm gonna have to go. And we really have, for example, 30, I'm not lying, like around 30 good groomers around here. And the
Hmm.
good groomers, they are really working, and they're making over like $70,000 a year. Like
Wow.
some groomers, they make more than I do. And they proved to me with the W-2. So when you have a chance, because I think it's really interesting to kind
Hmm.
of focus and try to understand why Virginia became this horrible. If you talk to anybody that owns a grooming salon here in Virginia, they're gonna tell that they stick with the ones they have and they are not going anywhere. And I fall in the cracks because I didn't know how hard it would that be.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to invite you to write to me, okay, at the email address that's there, and
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe I can set up a time to talk to you, and we can talk about some other strategies about that. Okay?
I appreciate. Thank you.
Sure. Hey, and you know what, Celeste? Now I am seeing some of the questions here.
Oh, great. Oh,
Uh,
great.
so let me just go through some of these. So one of them says, I avoid places that are always hiring, as it appears they have no ability to keep their staff. Local Panera Bread is a great example of that. No continuity with employees, always new faces, and they never stay. And the entire culture of that location sucks. There's that's I can see that as a valid point of view, and I'm not saying that you're not right about that. I can tell you that for this one account that I had, it worked really, really well. So, not everything works for every store. I wish there was one secret answer for all things, but there aren't. For the couple stores that I've had that did it, it actually, as long as most of their core staff didn't continually rotate over, then it actually was an effective device. But if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Okay. All right. Here's another one. Do you think a small independent retailer who is an active role in all aspects of their store can have a manager? What should we expect of a manager? Um, you know, uh, I can certainly, again, if you write to me, I'm happy to give you a job description of what I think a manager is. It's certainly going to vary depending upon the store and its size and its products and how many staff you have and that kind of thing. But certainly a manager needs to, I learned this early on that a manager needs to, one of their main goals needs to be to develop the other employees, right? And so part of their thing has to be to make sure they're watching those people, they're selling them well, that they're giving our customers a good experience, etc. So there's a job description for that, and I'm happy to share that too. Okay. Here's another one. I am a new store, less than 6 months, and I'm having a hard time keeping employees because it is retail, and I expect a lot for a retail store, so I'm trying to think of ways to reward them. So I like the bonus, but being new, I don't know if I can afford this at this time because I do not have much to go off of. Any suggestions? Yeah, my email is here. Email me and let me walk through some math with you on that, and let's come up with something that will make sense. Okay. Here's another one. A trouble we have at our store is that none of our grooming customers are are interested in the rest of the store. This causes irritation to our sales employees. How can we best get their attention into further shopping? Um, I think you have to find ways to sort of sneak that in without it being too, obnoxious, right? I've had stores that when they when they pay their grooming receipt, they staple a coupon to it for food or for toys or for something like that. I think they do it with a lot of signage near the grooming area, which is like, your dog endured a grooming session. Doesn't he or she deserve a toy? I think there are things you just have to do to make it fun. Here's the key. I think, I could do a whole other thing about marketing and that sort of thing, and I could talk forever about that for sure. But here's the main thing, okay? It's very easy to get annoyed by these things, and it can be a really abrasive kind of thing. You have to figure out how to make it into a game, how to make it fun, how to get them to see and understand the other things without it being, oh, I'm so annoyed that they don't actually look at the food, don't look at the treats, don't look at the other stuff. Okay. So I would look for ways to sort of. All right. I have two more. I'll just do here really quickly. Okay. Okay. I think this is the same question. So let me just see. Maybe rewarded to say always hiring amazing people. Yeah, you could say we're always hiring. We're always looking for the best of the best. That goes back to that always hiring question, right? So the last question I have here right now is, what would you say your top interview questions for the pet industry are? I certainly anything that gets them talking is going to become an important thing, right? So to that degree, let them talk about their own pets. You guys all know that people who, you get someone talking about their own pet, it could go on for weeks, right? So I think if you get them talking about their pets, their experience in the industry, I think that's an important one. I would talk about things that they've done that are related to what you're talking about. How do you engage people? What are great questions that you think you can ask someone who walks onto my selling floor? What pets do you like? What pets don't you like? I would get into some of those kinds of questions. Okay. All right, so Celeste, I think we're almost out of time, and those are all the questions anyway, so I think we kind of got through that. Okay.
Great.
But I want to thank you guys for letting me make this presentation. I've left my email and my cell phone number up here, so please feel free to call if you have any questions about this, or if you'd like a copy of this. I'm happy to email you a copy as well. And certainly, I hope you take advantage of the free inventory analysis, because I think you're going to find it's very eye-opening in terms of like how you can get more cash out of your store. Okay. And Celeste, thank you again, and all your staff and all your folks over there for letting me do this. I really appreciate your time, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks, Dan. That was a really fabulous presentation, and we really enjoyed it. And thank you to everyone for participating. Excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, don't forget this was recorded, and you can get a copy of this. You can watch it again on Global Pet Expo website at globalpetexpo.org. So if you missed something, want to go back and see what Dan talked about or get his contact information, it's all available. And mark your calendars for our upcoming webinars on August 15th, turning clicks into sales at your pet store with Lynn Switnowski, and on October 7th, how to create a store experience to improve your sales and garner a loyal clientele with Liel Michelle. Thanks again, Dan. Thanks to everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.